And I believe now we are live. Hello everyone. Good afternoon. Shalom. Chag Sameach. Today is Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day. It's a great opportunity to study a little bit of Torah. We always talk about the people of Israel, the land of Israel, and the Torah of Israel. It's great when we can put the three together. And today is a great opportunity to do so. So we welcome everyone, near and far, because there is no distance in the internet. You could be next door to me, or you can be the other side of the planet. Doesn't really matter. We are all connected. We all use the same chat. That is a hint that the chat is open. So if you are there, you want to say hi, I'd like to see your comments. Just like that. Hello, Rocky. Judge Rocky Pollack is here. Jerome Fomin is here. Chag Sameach to you guys. And I'm pretty sure there's more people there. I see the numbers. We have more than 2 people connected. So if you just don't be shy, use the chat, say hello. And we are going to study today wonderful parsha, Tazria-Metzora. This week actually we read 2 Torah portions together, and usually all these kind of obscure portions from Leviticus they don't say much to us. We find it dry, lots of sacrifices, things that we don't do anymore. But Tazria-Metzora is talking about all the measurements that they have to take against the lepers. Talking about timing, right? When we're in the middle of a pandemic and we have the opportunity to read in the Torah. Hello, Lourdes. Welcome. We have a chance to read in the Torah the way they used to deal with this kind of outbreaks or things illnesses that they were contagious and they didn't know how to stop it. So this Torah portion is talking a little bit about that. And they really had it difficult. Remember, they didn't have vaccines. They didn't even have knowledge about how the spread happened. How it went from one person to another. How come some people got sick, some people didn't. They didn't have that information. And they have to deal with this very contagious illness that is called Tzara'at in the Torah. It's usually translated as leprosy. Rabbis are not 100% sure if it's leprosy or maybe there were different kind of skin conditions and not too many experts. So we will see in a minute that it was all up to the Kohen, up to the priest to check all these people who will present symptoms. They didn't have PCRs or swabs back then, so they have to come to see the Kohen, the priest, and the Kohen will have to examine the patient, and based on that the Kohen will have to make a decision. And the decisions were quite harsh back in the day. If you had Tzara'at, you will have to leave the city, and there were special camps for people with the condition. And then once in a while you will have somebody checking on you, and then eventually if your condition improved, the priest will come back and check you again. Hello, Judy. Welcome. I hope you are doing something today to celebrate the state of Israel. And there is a great opportunity that it was prepared for by the Federation. I believe it starts at 5, but you need a Zoom link to celebrate that. But then at 6 o'clock, I know, same time of the minyan. I know, but it's because they are hoping that kids will participate in that. At 6 o'clock, there is a concert of Israeli songs with different local artists. I'm one of them, by the way. And it's going to be about 25 to 30 minutes long, no more than that. So from 6 to 6:30, have the opportunity to catch this concert. But if it's going to be streamed on the Federation Facebook page, I'm pretty sure we will share it after the fact. Share Zedek page. So if you cannot watch it at 6 o'clock. Wonderful, wonderful songs. Very talented people. Some people that I've never met before. I didn't even know that they could sing, and wow, they can sing. You will see. I don't want to give you anything else, but you have to catch it tonight at 6, or afterwards you can always watch the repeat. So yeah. Okay, so again, welcome everyone. Remember, you should always subscribe to our channels. I don't even have my subscribe button today. And anyway, but you know where it is. Find in YouTube the subscribe button, then you hit the bell, and you will be notified every time we go live or every time we upload something to our channel. And also, you know what this means? Give us the thumbs up. So that's the thing. Okay, so let's start with the class. Let's start it now. The Parsha Tazria-Metzora. Let's see what happened. Let me go to my PowerPoint. Here it is. It says, Zot tihye Torah Metzora v'yom taharoto v'huva el akohen. That's the way it opens. So it says, this is to be the law. It's interesting. I don't know if you caught that. In Hebrew it says, Zot tihye Torat. You know the word Torah, right? The Torah that we read. But in the context, Torah here means the law, the instructions, what you're supposed to do. Because basically that's what the Torah is. That's what the Torah is. Not really the Torah, is the Torah, the instruction with capital I. The law with capital L. But the word Torah is used in different situations within the Torah, as in this case, in the context, means law or instruction. Okay, it's always good to know that. So let me read again. This is to be the law or the Torah of the Metzora. Again, what is Metzora? We don't know. Most of the time, if you go to regular versions of the Bible, it's going to be translated as leprosy. Okay, but it was some kind of skin condition. But we are not really sure if the Metzora mentioned here is it's leprosy, and you will see why in a minute. This is to be the law of the Metzora. By the way, Metzora is the person with this kind of leprosy, not the illness itself. The illness itself is called Tzaraat. On the day of his purification, he is to be brought to the Kohen. Okay. Opening verse. Any comments so far about this opening verse? Have you heard anything? I always want to know that. Have you ever heard anything about this condition called Tzaraat? This ill people called the Metzora. And it's because there are different interpretations about that. So if you heard anything, if you ever study something about it, I would like to know. So please use the chat to let me know. I will be reading it all the time. I have just opened it in front of me. And I can read all your messages from YouTube and Facebook. So it doesn't matter which platform you're using to watch this. Chances are I can read your message. So don't be shy. Okay, so let's start bringing some interpretations about this opening verse, about the Metzora, the person afflicted with this kind of leprosy of skin condition. Judge Pollack said, is it always said to be a physical affliction? Yes, it is physical, but this is why the rabbis are not so sure that we are talking about leprosy, because even though it's a physical affliction, they try to connect it with a spiritual blame or flaw that you have to work on it. So it seems to be in the when you read the story, it seems to be some kind of skin condition that represent some kind of spiritual issue, and it will be manifested as this skin rash or condition or whatever it is, because eventually the Torah does give a very detailed description of what it is. And yes, if you base your opinion on the description, it seems to imply that it is leprosy, but it could also be something like psoriasis, that it has basically the same kind of white scabs and things. But yes, it is physical, the ones that we are talking here. And the funny thing is, and we are going to see it in a minute, that this kind of illness could be manifested on skin, on clothes, or on walls. So your house could have tzarat. Your entire house could be Metzora. Which I don't know, if you try to be if you try to understand it from a logical point of view, we may be talking about some kind of mold or something like that. I'm not really sure, but say that the house could contract this illness. Just very interesting, very interesting. Okay, so let's continue, because the first opinion I want to bring to you is a rabbi who said, okay, it's very interesting the way this verse is written. The rabbi is not really talking about the illness now. This rabbi is going to talk about the way the verse is written. It finds something odd about the grammar of this verse. So let's start from there before we move into the illness itself. It says, why did the Torah not use a simpler phrase? Zot Torat HaMetzora. This is the law of the Metzora. You see, the Torah says here, this is to be, is future tense, which is very unusual. Most likely, the Torah will say, this is the law, and that's it. Right now, this is the law for now. But why in the future tense? Back. Because if the Torah had started, this is the law of the Metzora, it would have implied that there definitely will be a Metzora in the future. The Torah did not wish to express such a pessimistic thought, and therefore stated, this is to be the law of the Metzora, should the circumstance ever arise. It's very interesting, because as I mentioned before, the rabbis understand tzarat as a consequence of an internal flaw. So what Rabbi Sofer is saying here is, this never have to happen. We have the tools to avoid those kind of spiritual flaws that they would eventually transform into tzarat. So the Torah doesn't want to imply that this is going to be always this way. There is no way out. It's something that is going to be with humanity forever. It's implying, even before the illness is described, that it doesn't have to happen. That we have the tool to put a stop before it becomes something bad. And I believe this is a wonderful thing to understand it this way. And it applies to so many things in life. That we said, yeah, this human nature is going to be like that forever. Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. The whole idea of society is that we improved in every generation. And there are many things that we already improved. There are many others that we haven't. But even with things that we still complain in this generation, I will say that many of the things are way better than they used to be before. Let's take a pandemic, for example. If you compare, even with everything that we have to say about governments and the way they handle this pandemic, if you compare the lot or the little that has been done for this specific pandemic that we're going through, and you compare what previous generation, like this generation here in the Torah, was able to do to deal with people with tzarat, it was a huge improvement. Things that we can do now that we couldn't do back then. So yeah, we have to believe that every generation can improve. So we shouldn't say this is the way it's going to be forever, but we have the tool to avoid it and eventually to eradicate all these issues or these flaws that we carry within ourselves. Yeah. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here. If you do, please let me know in the chat. But before that, hello Gloria. Welcome to the class. Welcome to the class. It's great to see so many of you connected. So let's continue. And first, I want to bring a text that is going to talk about another aspect of the Metzora. And this is going to be the words of Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who is also known as the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was the last Rebbe from Lubavitch. I don't know if you know the story of Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. He was the latest and the last Rebbe of Lubavitch. After he died, he had no heir. Nobody came after him. So basically today, Chabad Lubavitch is operating without a Rebbe. It's like the figure of this dead Rebbe is still guiding Chabad from the grave. Something like that. They never picked another one, which is very interesting. In fact, it reminds me to a joke that I heard once. So, but before I tell you that, the joke goes like this. It said, how many Orthodox rabbis do you need to change a light bulb? And the answer is none, because they don't believe in change. But then they said, how many conservative rabbis do you need to change a light bulb? And the answer is, we don't know. They're still talking about it. The third is, how many Reform rabbis do you need to change a light bulb? And I said, none, because everybody changes things whenever they want. And then they said, how many Lubavitchers you need to change a light bulb? And they said, none, because the light of the Rebbe is still shining. So, here you have a little joke today in this day of Yom Ha'atzmaut. I hope you like it. If not, I don't know, let me know in the chat, I guess. So, this is what the Rebbe have to say about Metzora and the Tzarat. He said, both on the onset and the termination of the state of Tzarat, or the state of Tzarat, are affected only by the proclamation of a Kohen. So yes, this is very important, even though it was not in the opening verse. The fact that the only one with authority to say, yes, you are a Metzora, or not, you are not, or you have to go to the leper's camp, or you are allowed to leave it because you are cured, the only one with authority to say or do that was the Kohen. Nobody else. You could go back in the day to another expert who will pretty much examine you, but the expert, doesn't matter what kind of an expert it is, was not able to make any decisions. The only one with the authority to do it was the Kohen. Of course, the Kohen could go and talk to an expert, but he was the only one who could say, you go that way, or you go that way. Okay, very important, because this is what the Rebbe is talking about. So, if suspect markings appear on a person, they are examined by an expert on the complex laws of Tzarat. Usually, but not necessarily, a Kohen. But even after a diagnosis of Tzarat had been made, the state of ritual impurity does not take effect, and the Metzora's banishment is not carried out until a Kohen, a priest, pronounces him impure. This is why even after all physical signs of Tzarat have departed, the removal of the state of impurity and the Metzora's readmission into the community is achieved only by the Kohen's declaration. Do you understand what's going on here? Only the Kohen could say you are, and only the Kohen could say you are not. Okay? Very important. The Kohen function as a condemner and ostracizer runs contrary to his most basic nature and role. The Kohen is commanded by God to bless his people Israel with love. Our sages describe a disciple of Aaron as one who loves peace, pursues peace, loves God's creatures, and brings them close to the Torah. But this is precisely the reason that the Torah entrusts the Kohen with the task of condemning the Metzora. You follow? This is great stuff. There is nothing more hateful to God than division between his children. The Metzora must be ostracized because through his slander and tale-bearing, and here you go. You can see here is a hint that the Metzora, this kind of strange leprosy, is a consequence of slander and tale-bearing. More of that coming up. Stay there. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Okay? But follow for now. He is himself a source of divisiveness. Nevertheless, the Torah is loath to separate him from the community. So, it is not enough that the technical experts say that he is marked by tzarat. It is only when the Kohen, whose very being shudders at the thought of banishing a member of the community, is convinced that there is no escaping a verdict of tzarat, that the Metzora is separated from his people. And it is only when the one doing the banishing is suffused with loving concern for the banished person that the penalty will yield a positive result: the repentance and rehabilitation of the Metzora. Okay? So, we are going to talk in a minute about this connection between slander and tale-bearing, okay? That's coming in a minute. But for now, let's talk about what's going on here with the priest and why the priest is the one who is in charge to say you are or you are not. And the fact that I believe that to a certain point, this is something that we all went through. It's like going to the doctor and the doctor has to tell you you're okay or you're not. Maybe you have an illness. And we know that there are ways and ways to tell the patient about that. And unfortunately, not every professional is good doing that. So the Torah says this is a terrible thing. When you suspect that you have tzarat, you suspect that you're a Metzora, the fact that you need somebody to tell you is as important as how that somebody is going to tell you. And the Kohen, the priest, seems to be the perfect person to do that. Someone who can look not just at the person but also at the soul. I can connect with this quote-unquote patient in a different way to bring not only the medical support but also the spiritual support at the same time, which is it's a very interesting thing. I talked about this, I believe, when was it? Last week during the sermon, that I said that sometimes it's not sometimes what you say but how you say it. How do you tell somebody that the person is a Metzora? Just say, sorry dude, you're a Metzora, get out of here. No, I don't think that's the right way of saying it. And perhaps you need somebody who could have some empathy or who can connect in a different way with this person to let the person know, sorry, you're a Metzora and you have to leave the camp. To say it in a very loving way. I don't know what the perfect way will be, if there is any perfect way, but I believe that there are ways that they are better than others. What do you think about this? Let me type it in the chat. I would like to see your comments about it. I would like to hear your comments. I know I'm reading it, but I'm trying to put a voice to every message I see here on the chat. So what do you think? Do you have any opinion about this? I would like to know. Well, while you think, I will give you another opinion that I have. And the problem is also that it is implied that the Kohen was also a specialist on the topic. I believe even in these days, because I always try to connect the Torah with whatever is going on in the world. We live in a world that also is not just about what and how, but also the fact that anybody seems to have an opinion, and many people seems to be able or willing to listen to virtually everybody that has an opinion, and that's not good. You can't just take any opinion as a valid opinion. That's not realistic. They're experts for a reason. And I know the word expert is a funny word, but in this case, I believe it's very important to understand that there are people that they study for years and years, and they can give you an informed opinion. And there are some other people that all they have is a Facebook degree on medicine. You didn't know that there is the Facebook University of Medicine? That all you need to take is it's 1 weekend long, and then you're an expert. And you will see that these experts, they go and give opinions, and unfortunately there are people that they follow these experts, and they disregard the opinion of the people who really know about something. In the limited world of the Torah, that real expert was the Kohen, the one who examined hundreds or perhaps thousands of people with Tzaraat during his lifetime, literally, because this was a very common illness. And that's why it was also the only one who can say, yes, you are on your, no, you are not. So it's saying that don't take Peter, hello Peter, Google degree. Okay, yeah, Google degree also. Yeah. It's yeah, but it's also, forget about the pandemic for a minute. This happens in so many areas of our lives that you will have somebody will say to you, no, you can't. Forget about it. You cannot do it. You know what? On what authority you are telling me that I cannot do it? We seem to take all these opinions of people who will tell you, no, forget about it. You're too young. You're too old. You don't have the resources. Try something else. And it could be, sometimes, people do it from the goodness of their heart, but not always. I've seen lots of time people bringing other people down out of jealousy or who knows what. So we have to be very careful with all these people giving you their opinions. And we have to know who to trust. And sometimes we have to listen to the Kohen. And in this context, in life in general, the Kohen represents Torah. So sometimes it's not about what people say about you, it's what God say about you. And God said, you can do it. You came to this world well equipped to fulfill your task. So once you discover what that task is, then you have what it takes. And don't listen to all these people that they are going to try to bring you down. Listen to the voice of God that says, you're special. You have what it takes. And get away from negative people. Get surrounded by positive people. Yeah. That's all I have to say about that. If you have any other opinion about that, I would like to hear it. Type it in the chat. Okay? So let's go back to the text. Because as I mentioned, the other thing that we didn't talk about, what the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, is the connection between Lashon Hara, or slander, or tale-bearing, and Tzaraat. Okay? Because the Talmud says, the word Metzora, there's a person afflicted with Tzaraat, is short for Motzi Shem Ra. One who disparages others. This teaches us that Tzaraat is a punishment for the sin of Lashon Hara. Wow. That's what the Talmud says about this illness. So you see that it seems to imply that it's not really leprosy, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense to connect it with Lashon Hara, with how you call it, slander. because it was things that happen in many different ways, but seems to be a specific skin condition that it was connected to the Lashon Hara, and there was a skin condition that if you repented and you changed your attitude, you could be cured from it. That's what the Talmud seems to imply. But nevertheless, I believe it's an opportunity for us to talk about it, to talk about Lashon Hara and how bad it is. How bad it is, slander in our lives in general. And in order to do that, I wanted to bring a comment from Rabbi Aaron Levin from Poland. And he said the following: Lashon Hara is viewed by our sages one of the worst sins that a person can commit. Why is it viewed so strictly? Because it is an abuse of the unique gift that distinguishes mankind from all other living things. That is, the power of speech. The Gemara, by the way, the Gemara, fancy name for Talmud in this context, okay? The Gemara states that one who speaks Lashon Hara is like one who has denied the essence of our beliefs. Kafar ba'ikar. Why? Because he has dishonored God by denigrating his special gifts to us, the power of speech. Even more than Lashon Hara is a terrible sin because of the attitude it demonstrates towards the human race. As explained above, it is even more sinful because of the attitude it demonstrates towards the Jewish people. Lashon Hara causes hatred, and its consequences are discord and disunity, which topple the pillars that support our people. Shalom is the absolute prerequisite to the existence of Am Israel, the people of Israel. Therefore, Lashon Hara is not merely a sin against the one spoken against, it is a sin against the Jewish people as a whole. This is so obvious that it's not necessary to address it at length. He continues. The Talmud Yerushalmi, and by the way, you know that we have two Talmuds, one from Babylonia, the other one from Jerusalem. The one from Jerusalem, not so popular, but still very important for Jewish people. So here he's quoting Talmud from Jerusalem. It's called the Yerushalmi. The Talmud Yerushalmi relates that when Rabbi Akiva was imprisoned by the Romans, his student Rabbi Yochanan Hassandlar needed to ask Rabbi Akiva a halachic question. Rabbi Yochanan therefore pretended to be a peddler, and he stood outside the window of Rabbi Akiva's cell, calling out, "Who wishes to buy needles?" In the middle of his call, he interspersed the words of his query. Rabbi Akiva used a similar tactic to answer the question, interspersing the words of the answer as he asked, "Do you have small ones?" Why did Rabbi Yochanan pretend to be selling needles, and why did Rabbi Akiva pretend to want small needles? This was the period after the destruction of the Second Temple, which was destroyed because of the sin of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. Seeing the suffering of his teacher, Rabbi Yochanan was calling out in his anguish, "Who will sew up the tears that have destroyed our nation?" Rabbi Akiva answered that as important as healing the tears in the nation is, that it's not enough. Only if the small ones, the youth, are united in their faith and their loyalty to the Torah can be hope. So here is Rabbi Akiva is talking about how important to be united it is, and he's implying that the sin of slander is the main reason for why we are not united. It's because that's what slander generates. When you slander somebody, let's try to understand our feelings for a second here. When you slander someone, when you tell the story about somebody else to a person, what you want is those two people don't to talk to each other. You hate somebody. Let's put it that way. You hate that person. So now you go and tell somebody else why that person is so bad. So now it's not just you hating that person, it's you and the person who listened to your slander. So now there are two people that they are separated from that third individual. Then the person that you told the story goes and tell it to somebody else. And now you have three people disconnected with the original one. Or maybe the third person is a friend of the one they are trying to slander. So now the third person that heard that you were the one talking about him does not talk to you. So here you have this big mess of people don't talking to each other. And what is the source of all that? Slander. Because if you're honest with yourself, you should realize that the reason why we go and slander people is because we want to create this kind of disconnection. We want to isolate somebody. It's very, very, very interesting. We try to isolate that person. By the way, what was the punishment or the consequence of becoming Metzora? Oh, you have to be isolated. Oh, you try to get somebody isolated, and the punishment or the result, the end result is you end up developing this illness that it will, at the end of the day, isolate you from the community. So now you can understand why the rabbis are connecting these two things. Metzora with Motzi Shem Ra, which is Lashon Hara, which is slander, and why slander is so bad. So in other words, the understanding here is that you realize that now you develop Metzora, you have to be isolated, and you can feel on your flesh what you have done to somebody else who is isolated because of your words. Does it make sense? I hope you saw it, so please let me know in the chat if you have any comments about that. Okay? So, let's continue. I have another verse from this parsha, and it says, "The Lord further spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, when you enter the land of Canaan, which I give you up for a possession, and I put a mark of leprosy on a house." Remember I mentioned before that houses could have leprosy as well. Go figure. "In the land of your possession, then the one who owns the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, something like a mark of leprosy has become visible to me in the house. The priest shall then command that they empty the house before the priest goes in to look at the mark, so that everything in the house need not become unclean. And afterward, the priest shall go in to look at the house." Wow. Very interesting, right? The house could become sick as well. Well, but listen to this. This is fantastic. This is the opinion of Rabbi Mordechai Kamenetsky, contemporary rabbi, by the way. When one seemingly has a blemish or sees a blemish in his own home, number one, he has no right to declare it as such. This is very important. He may have a problem, but should never declare it until seeking spiritual confirmation. One may think it is a blemish, may even appear as a blemish, yet until confirmed by the compassionate Kohen, it is only like a blemish. You understand? It's only like a blemish. However, until confirmed with counsel, it is not. If one goes to the Kohen and learns to utilize the impairing experience to grow, to become more patient, more understanding, and perhaps more sensitive to others, then the hindrances that he or she experience may be troublesome. They may even be disheartening. They might even be like a handicap, but they are not. But they are truly not. This is wonderful, and in the sense of what Rabbi Kamenetsky is saying here is how important it is sometimes to seek spiritual guidance when we feel that we have something wrong going on in our lives. Because at the end of the day, you may realize that whatever you thought that it was something wrong is not really wrong. It's an opportunity for you to grow, but you didn't see it. You were unaware of that. That's what I was saying before. People will tell you, yeah, you know, when you have a problem at home, because everything here is an what's the word? It's it's a metaphor. Okay, the blemish in the house could be, for example, a blemish at home, some kind of relationship problems, could be some types of dynamics, dysfunction in a home. And yeah, people will rush to tell you, yeah, you have a problem, get out of there, look for somebody else. So many different things. But here, if you analyze everything and you seek spiritual guidance, you can take whatever is going on as an opportunity to strengthen your relationship, to strengthen your family dynamics, to enhance your family experience. And that's what I was saying. Don't listen to people, listen to God, which at the end of the day means let somebody who knows Torah to inspire you so you can grow from whatever experience you're going through. Because we all go through things. And sometimes it's extremely important that you can see the blemish. Nobody says here, cover it up. No, it's saying it's great that you saw it, but don't rush to say it, I'm doomed. You saw a blemish. Don't rush to say this is the end. You have to start with the right question. What does it mean? How can I make this better? All those great questions. And if you have good answers to that, it will be an opportunity to grow from there. So, yeah, and listen what with Maimonides has to say about this. It says, Hashem in his mercy first strikes an inanimate object, one's possessions. The discoloration first appears on the wall of a home, forcing the affected stones to be removed and destroyed. If that event does not succeed as a wake-up call and the person continues his malevolent activities, then his clothing is affected. If that fails, eventually the flesh is transformed and white lesions appear, forcing the afflicted to leave the Jewish camp until the plague subsides and the Kohen declares him acceptable to return. This is quite interesting. Here Rambam says that this kind of blemishes on the walls are a wake-up call. If you react to that and you correct whatever is wrong, then it will stay there. If you don't, eventually it will affect you. Isn't life like that? That sometimes if we have problems at home and we bury it under the rug, we never take care of that, eventually they will end up affecting you. It's a fact. That's the way life works. So this is amazing. Amazing message from this parsha that I would say, pay attention whatever is going around you, because you will have an opportunity there to either grow or the opposite. The opposite is also true. Yeah. Great message to get inspired there. Rashi says something very similar to what Maimonides said. He said the first stage of Tzarat, which is in the home, is actually a blessing in disguise. Tzarat on a home can indeed bring fortune to the affected. As the Israelites were approaching the land of Canaan, his inhabitants, figuring that one day they will reconquer the land, hid all the gold and silver inside the walls of their homes. When one dislodged the afflicted stones of his home, he will find the hidden treasures that were left by the fleeing Canaanites. Again, don't take it literally. This is also metaphor. The sense that every time that you take the time to repair or to strengthen or to improve the relationships within the home, you will find your greatest treasure, which is family. When you have harmony and you have peace in the home, it's a treasure. And everything starts by not pretending that we don't have any problems, any issues, but by dealing with the problems the right way. I love this teaching. It's you have to remain positive and to take anything as an opportunity to grow. Because I believe we have also sometimes the tendency to be the opposite, to be negative. It's a fact that many times we are negative about the way we read things around. Whenever somebody said something, the first thing we imagine is all the bad things that come with that, right? Oh, somebody got sick. Oh, you know what? I know somebody else who died from that. But that seems to be human nature sometimes, to have that negative approach. And we have to learn to have a positive approach. For that, I want to share with you a beautiful story that I found, and I thought that it was very appropriate for this topic. So let me share it with you. It says, after the end of World War II, Rabbi Eliezer Silver visited and unaided thousands of survivors in displaced persons camps in Germany and Poland who were waiting to find permanent homes. One day, as he was handing out Sidurim, prayer books, and other Torah paraphernalia, a Jewish man flatly refused to accept any. And he said, after the way I saw Jews act in the camp, I don't want to have any connection with religion. Rabbi Silver asked him to explain what exactly had turned him off from Jewish practice. I saw a Jew who had a Siddur, yet he only allowed it to be used by the inmates in exchange for the daily bread ration. Imagine, he sneered, a Jew selling the right to daven, to pray, for bread. And how many customers did this man get? Inquired Rabbi Silver. Far too many, snapped the man. Rabbi Silver put his hand around the gentleman and gently explained, why are you looking at the bad Jew who sold the right to pray? Why don't you look at the many good Jews who were willing to forego their rations and starve just in order to pray? Isn't that the lesson you should take with you? It's brilliant. It's brilliant. This is the way, by the way, I did something, I don't know if you were at the service when I talk about this, about rebuking. This is the way you rebuke somebody, in order for somebody else to listen to you. With this positive note, which basically it's an invitation for all of us to take challenges as an opportunity to grow. As an opportunity to grow. In other words, you have to imagine sometimes that the stumbling block that you might find could become a stepping tool. But it's up to you. The way you see it. It's going to be a stumbling block or a stepping tool. Your choice. Your choice. And okay. I have one more text that is from Leviticus, also from the Parsha. This says, then the priest shall give orders to take 2 live clean birds and cedar wood and scarlet string and hyssop for the one who is to be cleansed. And this is basically after the person was cured. He doesn't have the lesions, the skin condition anymore. Now it's going to be readmitted in the camp. And there was this ritual that involves all those elements. And here Rashi is going to talk about the hyssop being used for this ritual. And he said the hyssop symbolizes the humility that the Metzora should have. And the cedar is a symbolic reminder that he should hold himself as high as the cedar tree should learn to lower himself like a hyssop. Sometimes people become so humble to the point of forgetting that they can actually achieve wonderful accomplishments. Often humility breeds self-effacement that might lead to despair. In other words, this is an invitation to never think that you cannot do it. Because as I say, we pretty much live for so long considering everything that is negative that is very difficult to get out of there. So you don't have to become an arrogant person in order to say, I can do it, I can succeed, I can do something different from whatever I was doing up to this day. You don't have to be arrogant. You can do it from your humility. And that's the goal. You should never confuse humility with low self-esteem. Humility includes healthy doses of self-esteem. And that is very important, because from that place, we avoid slander, we avoid disunity, and from that place, we can transform whatever obstacle we have in front of us as a stepping tool to reach the next level. And that was what I wanted to share with you. So thank you so much for everyone for being here, for sharing this classroom with me in this wonderful day of Yom HaAtzmaut, Israeli Independence Day. Today is Israel's 73rd birthday. So I hope you can join the celebrations that we have in the city. You should check the website of the federation. You have there all the details of the activities that start at 5 p.m. today. And then we continue at 6 with a concert with Israeli music. So don't miss it. Don't miss it. Thank you again, all of you, for being there. We won't have a class next week. I'm taking a week off. Yeah, once in a while, you see? Once in a while, I take some day off. Hello, Ellen. Welcome. Hi, Andrea. Thank you for being there. Thank you all for being there. And I will see you, God willing, in 2 weeks. I will enjoy next week off. You can enjoy a week off as well. Thank you all. Hope to see you soon. Stay safe. Chag Sameach. Bye now.